to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with Uohna June Thiessen and Louis D'Souza. Today is Monday, May the 4th, 2020, 4 p.m. New York time. Wherever you are in the world, thanks for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy, and may the 4th be with you on this beautiful day. I hope the 4th is with all of you guys. How are things? Did you have a good weekend? Are you enjoying things in sunny Florida, or is it just too hot there, Uohna? I have to ask.
Oh, it's never too hot for an island.
It's never too hot. Not for a Trinidad girl, I'm sure, yeah. But I mean, like for the rest of us
That's
mortals.
right. Yes.
I have exactly the same comments. London doesn't get hot.
Like
And
literally.
The locals think it does.
And he's the one who's saying that sitting in front of a beach scene. I mean, come on.
Right. Of course.
Fake it until you make it.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, we're going to do a little faking till we make it today. And the topic that we're going to be addressing is one that you only came up with once again. The topic of the subconscious or unconscious mind. And I actually did a little quick homework before we got started just because I wanted to know which was it. Was it the subconscious or the unconscious? And come to find out that Sigmund Freud popularized both. So it's an unsettled question. Which word is it? Is it unconscious or is it subconscious? The only thing I could find for sure is that apparently he preferred the word subconscious toward the end of his career. But beyond that, and it seems to be a question that has plagued many scientists and psychotherapists and psychologists and psychiatrists over the years. And fortunately, it's not one we're going to worry about too much, but I just wanted to pick a word. So I'll just go with subconscious. So what made you think of the subconscious? And this is going to be another interesting conversation because I have some glimmer of what Abraham has to say about the subconscious mind. And so it's going to be fun. So get us started. Where did this all come from in your mind?
Well, this came from one of our previous shows where we were talking about the heart intelligence, I think it was, and the topic of the subconscious came up, and we all kind of like, I danced around it because I wasn't quite sure. And so that led me to then go and do some reading and some research on, the topic as it relates to law of attraction. And I read a few books, all very informative and very interesting. Of course, the one that most people would know, and incidentally, Josephine had mentioned it one time in her comments, The Power of the Subconscious by Dr. Joseph Murphy. Mm-hmm. And then I read The Genie Within. And then there was another book that talked about uncovering the power of the subconscious mind, all kind of along the same theme. But these were written by all, proponents of the law of attraction, or some form of it. For example, Dr. Murphy, he came from the, the positive thought thinking.
Positive psychology.
In fact, not so much positive, the new thought specifically.
Oh, okay.
And that was kind of a blend of religion and positive psychology, like Napoleon Hill and a lot of these people came out of that school of thought.
Mm-hmm.
And the Unity Church actually, it came out of that as well, because Murphy was a minister of one of those churches. Okay. But he was the one who introduced the idea, or popularized it, I shouldn't say introduced, that our minds are made up. Our mind is made up of two components, the conscious mind and the subconscious. And incidentally, unconscious is now tending to be used to refer to another aspect of the mind, other than the subconscious, because there's a conscious mind, then there's a subconscious. Right. There's between the conscious and the subconscious is the ego, and then deeper than the subconscious is the unconscious, and deeper than the unconscious is the superconscious. So
is there an out to unconscious?
Eventually that one will come. But specifically the conscious versus the subconscious mind. Right. So we know, we talked a little bit about the fact that that's the part of the mind that controls the autonomic parts of the body. Right. But that's not all that it does. Right. It's also where our emotions are stored, where our beliefs, our held ideas, are very subjective ideas and things that we learned in childhood. That's where they get stored. That's where some people refer to the subconscious as a database of all our programmed habits, good, bad, indifferent, however you want to think of it. That's where it's stored, in the subconscious. And the subconscious, this programming happens at a very early age, right? Or, from anyway before you're born up until about 3. They believe that most of your emotional programs are already hardwired in. And what happens is, as you develop, then the conscious mind comes on board, and you start learning to evaluate things more critically, more rationally, which you didn't do when you were a child. And so what happens is, as you get older, then you start realizing that some of these programs may not be serving you. Some of them are outdated and counterproductive. And so that's where law of attraction comes in, because law of attraction teaches that it's all energy. There's all an energy aspect to our thoughts and our emotions, and that we have the ability or the power to choose the kinds of thoughts that we're thinking, and then that can influence the feelings that we are feeling, and the emotions that we are generating, and the vibrations that we're creating, that the message that we're sending out to the universe to attract to us the things that we desire. But we have to bear in mind that a lot of these programs that are running in the background in our lives are below our awareness. And so it's going to take something other than thoughts to override those programs. In other words, to get us, to send out, to vibrate the kinds of energy at the level that the things that we're trying to manifest in our lives.
So, Louis, is that true? Is it going to take more than our thoughts to overcome these subconscious programs?
Thoughts. So my idea of subconscious is taking these programs, etc., that Uohna's talking about, and looking at them as vibrations. So you do need to look at different vibrations when you come into this physical universe. So you come into this physical universe with the idea of taking on a body. Now, a body already has, as far as I guess, is a whole set of vibrations, which is vibrations which will control the lungs, which will control a lot of the movements, etc., without any thought. So when you come into the physical world, you have the non-physical and you have the physical. Now, the non-physical, they say, is much, much bigger than the physical, and both of them together come into the physical universe. So when the non-physical is coming in, and before it even comes in, it is of incredible awareness, and it thinks, and it knows, and it understands. So that part decides to take on a body, which already has a whole lot of programs which are running. Then you have your parents, which start giving you other programs, which you will take on board. But again, your non-physical part is still there, and your non-physical part is your dominant part, and it is not unaware, it is not unconscious, it is incredibly conscious. And the whole thing about humans is we don't really perceive the soul, we don't really perceive the non-physical part that much, and we kind of poo-poo it, and then people come along and start putting a bit of proof on it, and then so you've got this whole back and forth going with many individuals about how much effect and even existence of the non-physical, of the soul part of you is. So, what was your question there? Because I needed to bring that in so that I could continue from where you wanted to ask.
Yeah, the question I was asking is it true that we need something other than thoughts in order to deal with changing the programming involved with subconscious mind?
Thoughts. So thoughts have two aspects. One is I'm thinking of something I want and I'm trying to manifest it. And the other part of thoughts is the awareness of what you want, awareness of what's going on. So there's two kind of aspects to thought. One is when you're aware that you've got a problem, then it's much easier for you now know what you don't want with clarity because you're aware of it. Then you can go and focus on what you do want. So yes, if we want to take thought, yes, it can do it, but it needs awareness as well. So it's like the combination of those two.
Okay. All right.
So I think that you
go ahead.
Yes. So when it comes to the vibration that we're sending out, thoughts are a very minor part of that. In fact, the energy of the thoughts are very weak. And when we think of the fact that we have both a conscious and a subconscious mind, and I'm going to take a side to address something that Louis was saying about. I said that we are unaware of our subconscious thoughts. I didn't say that our subconscious is unaware. There's a difference.
So are you defining subconscious as soul or source energy part of you, or how are you defining it?
So subconscious is the part of your mind that does not think in thoughts, does not think in words, thinks in images and emotions. And that's something separate from the soul. I'm not referring to the soul here. The subconscious is in contact with the soul, is in communication with the soul. Mm-hmm. The subconscious is the means by which we communicate with the soul and universal energy and all of that. But when it comes to the subconscious, I'm being more specific. It's a part of your individual mind. And so the subconscious is the part with which you are able to sense the energetic environment around you. So you have, your conscious mind, which senses through your senses, for want of a better word. But, you use your eyes and your ears and your nose and your five senses. And that's how your conscious mind
perceives the physical reality.
Right,
yeah?
Exactly. But your subconscious only understands images and emotions. And not only does it only understand in that language, it also does not it's not so you saying words to yourself is not necessarily going to communicate to the subconscious. Joseph Murphy in the book The Power of Subconscious, he used a nice anecdote. I'm not sure if it's an anecdote.
Analogy.
Yeah, about the subconscious, right? And he refers to it as a ship, and he says that the conscious mind is the captain on the bow, the hull, the front, the bridge of the ship. So the captain is up there on the bridge and he's seeing the water and all the dangers. But the subconscious is more like the crew down in the engine room. And they're just powering up the ship to keep going. And so if the captain wants to change the direction that the ship is going, he's the one that's going to have to then communicate to the crew what he needs. If he can't communicate to the crew is going to continue running the programs that they've always run. And so nothing changes, but he can be up there, in our conscious mind, thinking the thoughts that we're thinking. But unless we communicate images and feelings to the subconscious, that's why in law of attraction, we use things like the vision boards and other those kinds of modalities, because the LOA teachers, they know that we by simply stating something or thinking something or voicing something is not effective enough to get through to our subconscious. And so that's why they advise us to use pictures and images. And also when we say our affirmations, to say them with feelings. And when we use our imagination, we have to work up the emotion as if we were really in that present moment, because that's what the subconscious understands and then receives as a command to vibrate at a certain energy level and then attract that experience into our lives.
It sounds almost like you're describing the subconscious as if it were a separate being.
No, no. It's just another part of the mind that gets ignored. It's like your heart. You have various parts of your heart. You have the stomach. You have the small intestines and the large intestines. They're all part of the stomach. So the subconscious is a part of our mind. But because we live in a world that's for the most part material, and that's where the conscious mind operates, that we've had a lot of focus on that. And this is part of our industrial age. We talked before about, some of these older cultures and religions. They were very much aware of and in tune with the power of the subconscious, because they knew that in the non-physical world, the immaterial world, the subconscious dominated. But our advance in technology has moved us further and further away from consideration of the subconscious mind. So in our education and in our culture and in our tools, we focus mainly on the conscious mind to the neglect of the subconscious.
So you're saying that the conscious being is separate from the subconscious mind, but a part of the same being?
No, it's not a being. It's not a being. It's just an operating
system.
It's part of the same system, yeah.
So it's more like an organ.
Yes, exactly. So, you have your computer and there are different parts to the computer. It's the same computer, but it's, they have different functions. So the conscious mind has a certain function and the subconscious mind is in charge of something else. That's all.
Does it have a particular residence, a particular locale that it's located?
Incidentally. Yeah, so yeah, because that brings me to some of my favorite things, talking about neuroanatomy. And when scientists talk about the subconscious, there are two schools of scientists. There are those who talk about it in terms of evolution. So the evolutionists, they think that when it comes to the subconscious mind is made up of two parts of the brain, the reptilian brain and the mammalian brain. And let me go back out for a second. So there's this idea of the triune brain. That's the brain has three parts.
Okay.
So there's the top part, that's the cortex. Like when you see a picture of the brain, you see that convoluted folded part, that's the cortex. And below that is the mammalian brain, and then below that is the reptilian brain.
Okay.
And it has these names because the reptilian brain, that's the one just above our brain, our spinal cord, mm-hmm. right? And it's called the reptilian brain because that's the part we share with reptiles. Reptiles, that's the only brain they have.
Okay.
And this part of the brain is in charge of survival and safety. That's all it knows. They use the 4 F's to describe the functions.
I can hardly wait.
Food, fight. I know everybody always gets curious to hear what I'm going to say when I say this. Food, fight, flight, or finding a mate.
Okay.
Those are the 4. Yes, finding a mate is the politically correct or the child safety way of saying it. So that's what the reptilian brain is in charge of. And then above that, inside, is our mammalian brain, and that's the emotional part of our brain. That's where all our emotions are generated. It's also where all our beliefs and our fears and all those things that we can't sometimes articulate in words, that's stored in that mammalian brain, and we share that brain with mammals. Mammals have that brain so they can care for their young and do all the things that are involved as far as emotion. And then above that, that's where the cortex is. That's the part of the brain that we use for our thinking and reasoning and, doing all the other things that we associate with having a brain. And so the evolutionists believe that the lizard brain or the reptilian brain combined with the mammalian brain is what makes up the subconscious. Now
so it's definitely saying here that the location of the subconscious is in what we might call the lower part of the brain.
Exactly. Yes. Right. And if I think of it in terms of the development of the embryo, when the baby is being formed after conception and it starts, developing into the different parts of the human body, the reptilian part of the brain is what forms first. Mm-hmm. And that happens like within the first 3 or 4 weeks of development. And then from then on, the mammalian brain starts coming on board. And that can go on from, about 4 or 5 weeks all the way up until before birth. Now, the cortex comes online, just before birth, but it doesn't get complete. There's a lot of development that happens after birth because you're learning everything, you're seeing everything, you're responding to everything. So the baby's brain, or the toddler's brain, I should say, is very active as far as the cortex is concerned. But the cortex, we have to remember, it keeps developing way into like 3, 4, 5 years of age. And even so, the frontal lobe, the most advanced part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, that's the part just behind your forehead, that doesn't come online completely until in your mid-20s. And that is why I always like to add this, that the U.S. penal system does not allow they don't allow putting young people to death because of the absence of a prefrontal cortex.
Okay. So you said earlier that the subconscious mind is located in the lower part of the brain. Where's the conscious mind located?
In the cortex, the outer part.
So our entire mind is located in our heads.
Yes.
None of it's in the heart.
Well, there are people who believe the subconscious is the mammalian brain as well as the reptilian brain and the body. Because like some people, that lady who Candace Purr and others believe our body is our subconscious mind. So they believe it's all part of it. Yeah. So, yeah.
How about what we in Abraham circles call the inner being? Where's that?
So that would refer to the soul, I'm imagining, right?
Sure. I'll accept that equation for the moment.
Right. And so there's no actual physical location. Some people believe that it's like a light or something suspended above the head, or I'm not sure. But there's no physical. They haven't identified that one yet.
So the question that's in my mind is, I agree with Louis. The inner being or soul or whatever you want to describe it as has its own conscious awareness.
Right. Yes.
And yet it seems to do that without what we're defining here as a conscious mind.
Right. So the inner being does not require a conscious mind. The inner being is not in the world of material, in the material world. We are the ones in the material world. So we're the ones that have come into this experience. And so being in part of the material world requires to have a mind and a subconscious mind, but it's our subconscious mind that connects us with the inner being. Our inner being communicates with us through our subconscious mind.
And yet isn't our inner being part of who we are?
It is part of who we are, but not in a physical sense, like it's not like an organ inside of us.
Okay, so you're saying that the conscious mind, therefore, as we're describing here, is the physical side of the conscious mind, and it's in the physical part of the body that you're describing in the brain.
Right, exactly.
Okay. All right, well, now at least I know what we're talking about. We've defined our terms. That's helpful.
Yes.
Louis, did you want to jump in with something? You look like you kind of wanted to say something.
Abram makes quite a statement saying very passionately that there is no such thing as a subconscious mind, and it is perceived as old programs which you consciously created is probably the best analogy that they give of what they think humans or mankind perceives as an unconscious or subconscious mind. So I have become more and more aware of one simple aspect of my own self, and that is I am far more the non-physical than I am the physical.
Mm-hmm.
I am far more not here than here. I'm far more energy or vibration than I am any of the physical part.
Well, we always knew you
And
were otherworldly, so that makes sense.
so you're kind of looking at life from a very different perspective, and you're kind of living it, looking at it from a more holistic part of you, because I kind of even see the soul as not even just inside my body or around me or anything. I perceive it as everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's no real separation or segregation. There is some level of different awareness between different inner souls, and that's an aspect which I'd love to ask Abram, because I'm clueless about how your soul differs to my soul. But from a space and time perspective, this physical body is just such a small part of the whole picture, and you really start perceiving it, you start living it, you start being aware that there's so much more going on, and you start tuning to different stations and feeling different things, and then you start picking up some of these unconscious programs, I think, that are sitting around, and you start being able to say, okay, I know what I don't want, I'm going to focus on what I do want. The big thing that I had against the word subconscious and unconscious years ago, now I don't really have any feeling for it either way, was it tended to give me a feeling of powerlessness, like somebody else had power over me or something else had power over me. And that always annoyed me in some shape or form, because it didn't feel good, it didn't feel right, that anything else was manipulating me. So I kind of come to the conclusion now that any of the programs that are running subconsciously or unconsciously within me are ones that I, on some level, have programmed into myself. I've chosen my parents, I've chosen the environment that I've come into, I've chosen my body, I've chosen all the different factors from a conscious awareness soul point of view. And so I'm choosing to play with these programs. And, you know, once you're in a game, you've got to play within the confines of the game, because that's where you are, until you become a true master and you can blow through all of those. So, you know, in theory, masters can make gold appear in their hands and can be in many places at one time, which is quite a common master thing. By location, you can consciously go into meditative states and perform incredible feats. Like even under hypnosis, they've taken people, burnt them with a cigarette, and there's no mark whatsoever, nothing, zero, zip, which is fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, there was a couple of scientists, researchers, and they studied those phenomenon, and they were the ones who gave us the idea that with these kinds of things happen, you know, the cigarette burning, even with hypnosis and all these other things, was what was happening was people were tapping into the power of their subconscious. And when I learn about the subconscious, for me, it is actually empowering as opposed to the other way, because we are learning that we have this unlimited resource. Because one of the things you learn about the subconscious is that it's so much more powerful than the conscious mind in terms of, if we just talk about speed with which the subconscious mind can work, it can work thousands of times faster.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of neuroanatomy, the neurons in your cortex or in your conscious mind, they may have 4 or 5 extensions or branches connecting them. You know, sometimes they may have more, a dozen or more, so connecting to other neurons, right? So the connections or the synapses that happen between those neurons are, you know, kind of in real time. But if you think about the subconscious in the mammalian part of your brain or the emotional part of your brain, or even in the cerebellum, which is part of the subconscious mind, those neurons can have thousands of connections. In some cases, 60, 70, 80,000 one neuron connected to other neurons. So the processing speed, that's why they talk about the conscious mind as being, you know, a linear processor, while the the subconscious is like a parallel
The
process.
quantum.
So much faster. And so to me, learning about that, the secret is learning how to access, to communicate with that part of my being, of who I am, so that I can then now not have this power operating randomly, but now I can actually control it. And I think that's what the law of attraction is all about. It's just telling you, hey, you have this ability and you can choose to be in charge of it if that's what you'd like, because it's there and it's working and it's doing amazing things. It may not be the things you want to manifest, but it's working. And so if you could then tell it what to do, that's like, for me, that's the ultimate of what the law of attraction is all about, communicating. But I wanted to mention one more thing about the subconscious. The evidence for the existence of the subconscious is everywhere. I mean, when you think in terms of when you go to sleep and you dream, that's your subconscious in full flight, doing what it does best, talking, programming, that's your subconscious. And, there are other ways, like we mentioned, when people undergo hypnosis, that is the way that these hypnotists have learned to communicate with people's subconscious and get them to do amazing things. And I remember Walt was saying last time, and when I mentioned hypnosis, and you were saying that it seems appropriate for people who have some severe trauma, but it's not only in those cases that they use hypnosis. In colleges across America, there are hypnotists who travel just to put on a show and get paid.
Oh, sure.
I've seen it and they've done it. I remember one show where the guy told the lady that the number 7 does not exist.
Yeah.
And he told her to count how many fingers, and she kept coming up with 11, and she couldn't understand how she has 11 fingers. They did everything. They told her they would give her $1 million so she could tell them what 3 + 4 was. She couldn't say the answer. I mean, it was totally gone from her mind, from any level of her consciousness. And there are other examples, but there are people who have learned to control that involuntary part of their body, the part that controls their heart rate and their blood pressure and their, the yogis and the Buddhists, they've learned how to do that. So it's something that can happen. And that's essentially what we're trying to do, not just to control our blood pressure, but to learn how to get our subconscious to work in alignment with us, because it's the conscious plus the subconscious that equals the power to manifest. That's what I believe.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, I can see that. The thing that is interesting to me about the Abraham idea is the idea that the subconscious mind is basically a collection of previously thought thoughts. That's my way of saying it.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that's interesting to me is if we take the Abraham teachings at face value, what they're really saying is you thought about something at one point and you gave it enough spin or enough attention, is probably the better way of saying it, for a sufficient period of time.
Activated the vibration significantly.
Yeah, the vibration just kept building and building, and it started developing a momentum. Right. And that as time goes on, the momentum of that just keeps building and building and building and building.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes a lot of sense to me from the Abraham perspective that thoughts and feelings and recordings and everything else within the subconscious mind are so powerful because, depending on how far back we started, right. Well, yeah, they would be pretty powerful after a while. I mean, they'd be so powerful, they'd seem overwhelming. That actually fits. Yeah. That makes sense.
Right.
So I like that part a lot. I also like the part that says that because we created those thoughts, therefore we can create different thoughts.
Yeah.
One of the things that I kind of made a point about on Friday during the show was with law of attraction. When you attract something, just because you attract it doesn't mean you have to keep it. We often think we have to keep something. We're stuck with it forever and ever, and that's just not the case. We can decide, nope, I don't really want that. I'm going to toss it aside, and I'm going to attract something else because we have free will.
There will be people who will tell you that's not possible.
Well, that's probably true, yes.
And I'm sure they get those individuals.
They believe it, so it's got to be true.
Exactly, and then it'll be true for them.
That's right. Yeah. Over and over.
Yeah,
It's a
and
very tricky thing talking about the law of attraction, how it really works.
yes, because for me, when I learned about the law of attraction and I learned about the power of my thoughts and the energy in my thoughts, and that was very illuminating. But it took me years to understand that there was more to it. There was more to it than just my thoughts, because I didn't realize that I could be thinking one particular thought or in a certain line of thinking, but who I'm being, my vibration is not in congruence with that. And so I have to then do what it takes to get my programs, my feelings, my beliefs, my emotions to also be in line. And that's why they talk about gratitude, why it's so. I had a new appreciation for gratitude this week, because it's not simply mentioning things that you are grateful for, but it's about one, of course, generating the feelings so that you're communicating this to your subconscious, but it's also about changing the state of your being. And that happens on an energetic level when you do that repetitively, as well as on the level of the neuronal connections in your brain. The more you go there and you generate those feelings, the more you make those connections, and the more times you make those connections happen, the stronger the connections become, and you run those connections repeatedly until they become a part of who you are. And so that becomes your state of being, and that becomes the place from which you're vibrating, so that you can then attract that an energy that matches that. So
I saw an interesting definition or description of stress over the weekend. It was part of a conversation Louise and I had, and so I did a little research, as I so often do afterward, just to kind of match up with what we were talking about. And I wanted to see what medical authorities would define stress as, and got quite a range, as you might imagine. There's a large range of definitions out there. Yeah. One of the more interesting ones was touching on the idea that stress happens whenever we are presented with something new, a new reaction.
Yes.
Anything that's new comes along.
Yes.
I found that one fascinating, because the idea basically supposes that anything new that comes along is going to in some way be jarring or upsetting or in some way in conflict with where we are.
Right.
And I thought about that, and I said to myself, so when I feel joy, and I wasn't feeling joy before, that means I was jarred. And you know what? I couldn't reconcile that one.
You weren't feeling joy before?
No. I'm saying that if I was at one moment not feeling joy, and at the next moment feeling joy, I wasn't feeling jarred in the transition.
Well, but feeling joy is not the only reason that you're not feeling joy. You see, just one of the reasons. So that's one of the sources of stress.
But I'm saying that was a change in reactive state. So according to the theory that they were laying out, that should have been a stress point, and it wasn't.
I don't follow.
Well, it's a change in my reactive state. I'm experiencing a change, something new.
Oh, because, okay, I see what you're saying. So when they say that a change, it causes a stress reaction, it's not necessarily a change of state, and it could be a change of state, but I think it's a challenge to your patterns, your limiting beliefs. That's something that challenges.
Boy, often challenges my limiting beliefs in a good way. I like it when it does
well,
that.
Yeah, some things do challenge you in a good way. Other things don't. And so that can be a source of stress for a lot of people. And one of the reasons why they say that happens is because our subconscious, again, is very energy efficient. And so it has these programs that it runs, and it's been running them for most of your lives. And as a result, it requires very little energy to run these repeated regular programs. To run a new program takes energy. It's going to have to use energy to change the program and to reinstall a new program. So it's resistance to that energy that's required. And so sometimes and it's not just with, it's any kind of behavior that you're trying to change, or some attitude, anything that's going to be, different from the programs that you've been running normally. that's what happens. Even when you try an exercise program, that takes energy, and the brain and the body is like, listen, we've been doing this. We've got it down to a science. So
We're the doctors here. You listen to us.
exactly. Yeah, because that's what it's about. It's about maintaining the status quo, right? Whether that's been a good thing or a bad thing. As long as it stays the same, no energy is required. Anything time and change is you try to make a change, then you feel that thing in your body that feels uncomfortable.
Well, I'm going to bring in a little
way
Abraham teaching to kind of redefine that a little bit, see if I can redefine that. I'm going to make a suggestion that stress happens when we're presented with some experience, some shift happens, some reactive shift happens that we, on some level, disagree with, and that it doesn't happen when we agree with it.
I would completely agree with you. What I was going to point out a little bit earlier was every subject's two subjects, wanted and unwanted. So when you are wanting something and you're going and manifesting it, which is something new, it is not difficult. The whole universe comes together to help you.
Inspires?
Yeah, conspires to help you. And okay. If you're focused on what you don't want, so like jumping off a high diving board, which you've never done before, which is something new to you, and if you're focused on how exhilarating it would be easy. But if you're focused on how scary it is, then it'll be painful and difficult and all the rest of it. So I think it's just broken down for clarity and simplicity as every subject's two subjects on that one.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to the idea of stress. Do you know, Walt, that the doctor who coined the term stress actually coined two words. One dropped out of the lexicon. Eustress, EUSTRESS.
Okay.
Which was used to refer to good stress. So he had stress and eustress because he saw that all systems react to what is called eustress by getting better, getting stronger, getting fitter, improving. So there's stress that harms you, and then there's stress that actually benefits you. And this is something that I've been
guys who call themselves adrenaline junkies or stress junkies. Yeah.
No, not necessarily that kind of stress. We're talking, when they talk about eustress, they're talking about things like, and I can think of something really quickly, but he refers to some things like fasting. I don't know if you're familiar. When you say fasting, people hear starving. But I know. Fasting is actually the abstinence of food for an extended period of time under a controlled situation. And that can actually have amazing beneficial effects on the body. Yeah. When you abstain from
food.
Done it.
Been there. Got the T-shirt.
Oh, yes, my dear. Trust me, I have. Yeah, extended fasting, as it is referred to. You fast for a certain amount, like a couple of days, 3 days. Some people go for a week. But if you fast for more than 72 hours, you can regenerate your entire immune system. And the science is there to back it up. All of your immune cells are recreated anew. And the Japanese doctor 2 years ago, he won a Nobel Prize for the discovery of autophagy or autophagy, depending on where you're from. And it's essentially where when you are fasting, the body now is no longer using energy to digest your food and all that kind of stuff. So energy goes into repairing and getting rid of all broken, unused cells and repairing damaged tissue. And that happens after an extended fast, autophagy. It's amazing stuff. People are using it to cure themselves, to heal diseases, to get younger, to treat cancer. And it all happens with autophagy, which fasting for most people is a very stressful thing. If they couldn't eat for a day, their body would be under a lot of stress. But if you can endure that stress and move beyond that, the benefits are amazing. And so that's just one example of what is considered eustress, especially as far as biological systems are concerned.
Okay.
And exercise is another form of that. of course.
Yeah,
Yes.
I knew that just from looking at runners. All you have to do is look at their faces, and it's interesting. You talk, and you're a runner, so like I can talk to you about this too. But most runners, you talk to them and you ask them, why do you like running so much? And they give you a variety of answers. Usually, it makes them feel better and so forth. And yet, when they're running, they have the most exquisite looks of pain on their faces. In direct
Some do,
contrast,
some don't.
they'll tell you.
Not all of
Yeah,
them.
some do and some don't. I saw this
And
lady
it depends
running.
on the speed as well.
Yes, that's true.
And it also depends if they're hitting or not. High intensity resistance training. Yeah.
But that's what the other thing is. When I was talking, incidentally, I shared a live video after our run on Sunday, and somebody reached out to me wanting me to come and talk on their podcast. But high intensity interval training is another form of use stress. You put the body under stress. You challenge it to go outside of your comfort zone, to run faster than you think you're capable of for a certain period. And then you rest and recover. And your heart gets stronger, your lungs get stronger, and you realize that when you do your normal run, not, high intensity, that it becomes easier. So now you're able to run faster and harder, but with less effort. It's amazing. So you exert the stress on one end, and then you reap the benefits on the other. So all of these things I'm writing about in my book. So that's why I'm so passionate.
You're excited.
Yes.
Are you stressed? No, I shouldn't have.
Oh man, yes, I am, but it's like good stress. I'm loving it.
It's one of those terms that's a little confusing, and that's why I'm glad we're exploring this a little bit, because it does get used in different ways,
Yes.
under different circumstances.
Yeah.
Which is really strange. English is one of them. I think it's probably the most multi-valued language
I think so
on
too.
the planet,
Yes.
and yet we insist on taking certain words and using them to mean a whole bunch of different things. What happened to all the multi-value, words that we're going to bring in there? And no, it's got to be stress, and stress over here, and this is stress, and that's stress. It's all stress, and let me stress that it's stress.
Yeah, the English is really, really difficult like that, and because other languages are very more specific, and
Yeah.
It's that's one of the beauty of it is you get opportunities like I'm trying to get to repurpose words like the word struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Struggle is a challenging word.
I think you're going to struggle to change the word struggle.
Oh, I'm up to the struggle.
I would just use another word that's more positive. I wouldn't fight the vibration that's been going on for centuries centuries in different languages.
It's just like stress and eustress and struggle. If you can get people to just maybe, they don't have to accept it, maybe realize that the definition they have is not the only one, or the energy they have around struggle is not a given, then that's it. That's all I want.
Part of it is then just deciding, am I going to continue to be uncomfortable and upset about a word such as struggle, or am I going to find a new way to feel about it? I mean, It's basically the dark cloud versus the silver lining thing.
Yes.
Which side am I going to look at?
Exactly.
You have that choice with everything.
Yeah,
but the silver lining that I would find out of the word is something on the positive side, and I would just focus on that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to redefine a negative, a perceived society negative word. I wouldn't.
It's not a negative word. I don't think it's a negative word.
I thought we discussed this before on the program, that we agree that society as a whole perceives it as a negative word. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about society as a whole.
Okay. I don't know if you discussed it, but I didn't.
We have the recordings. We can go back.
Oh, that's funny.
No, but
So you don't perceive that the world in general perceives it as a difficulty, as a challenge.
Absolutely.
That is hard and not very nice.
Yes, I do. I do perceive that.
Okay, so again, we're in the same place we agreed on before. So
right, and so because of that, I want people to realize that embracing the hard, embracing the difficult, embracing the challenging, on the other side of that is the victory. On the other side of that is their manifestation.
Absolutely. We're completely in agreement there. When you know what you don't want, you have a better idea what you do want.
Yeah, so
it is really that simple.
Yeah, so that's what I am endeavoring.
Which is great, to get people to appreciate what they don't want, which is what I've said millions of times.
Although that's not exactly what I am purporting.
Okay.
That's not what I'm saying. So. It's different. I'm saying.
Wait, are you saying that we have different perspectives here? Oh my
Oh,
No, we're not
no
allowed that.
way. God forbid. No, what I'm saying is go into the challenge, lean into it, accept, see the struggle.
Absolutely. Know what you don't want. Be clear about it. Appreciate it. Completely agree with you.
And walk into it. Accept
Absolutely.
it. Take it on.
Absolutely. It's what expands you. It's so important. I agree with you.
That's
We're on the same page. High five.
High five.
So there was two things I wanted to bring up. One is
I already have my first convert.
No, you've just come to understand me eventually.
Kidding.
It's just taken you a while.
I'm just kidding.
So there was two things. One thing, when you're talking about subconscious and unconscious and the way you perceive it, again, you've redefined it as opposed to what the masses perceive it as. And I would rename it to source energy, your own source energy, as opposed to this place that's got so much power and so much speed and all the rest of it. I would term it would be the individualized source energy of an individual.
Yeah, so what I shared was not my definition of that. That's what
your definition that you're promoting on the show, or I don't know how you.
Oh, I see. What I'm sharing, like from what I read, but that's okay. So.
Well, I mean, I'm quite happy to hear what your personal definition of subconscious or unconscious is.
My subconscious is my powerhouse.
So maybe your source energy.
I have to think about that.
Fair enough.
The other thing I wanted to bring in was Carolyn Mace, which all fits in with what we've been talking about. Carolyn Mace said a lovely story, and I'm not sure if I've ever said it before on the program. I doubt it. She talked about she was in some city in America, and there was some hospital that called her up, and she was driving to the hospital, and when she drove, because the hospitals were full because there was a riot going on. And somebody said, there's a riot going on, but it didn't mean anything to her. So she drove through the city and there was a riot and people were burning cars in front of her and turning them over. And she just sat there and said, "Get me out of here. I had no interest in any of this." Mm-hmm. And everything just cleared and she just drove straight through and nothing happened to her. And she was looking at the person behind her who was getting the whole car turned over and they're getting her ripped out and all the rest of it. And she just said, this is the interesting part. She said
that part wasn't interesting enough.
No, she was bringing up a new idea. This is something new that she hadn't really thought about riots or what it was like or anything. It was a new thing to her. So it was a vibration that hadn't been very active in her. Mm-hmm. She hadn't had any previous thinking that there's something to worry about, something to be concerned about, something that's just to be scared about, etc. So she said if she goes into a similar situation again, she doesn't think she'll be able to pull out of it. She won't have that same experience.
Yeah. And
I thought it was a brilliant analogy of how the whole process works in the human. Between the conscious and subconscious.
Yeah, because we all have our own unique programs. There's an interesting thing about that. They were talking about Chinese, I don't know if Chinese, but Asians, they were asking these Asians if they knew what red head was, what a redhead was. And these were Asians living in America. And they said, no, there's no such thing as redhead. And then when they actually showed them pictures of people with redhead, they were shocked because they'd seen this before, but they'd never realized it was redheads because there's no redhead in Chinese in their culture, right? So it was just completely outside of their awareness and they just did not pick up on it, And so
I don't understand why, because they've got dyes in China as well.
We have dyes here too.
Exactly. So I'm a bit confused about the story.
No, but they just never knew about it. There was no term for it in their language. They never talked about it, so it just did not make any sense to them. But coming back to the subconscious exists, and there are people who are actually exploiting knowledge of how the subconscious works, advertisements. Is that how you say advertisements? Because that's how we say it in the Caribbean. But I
We
think
say
America.
advertisements. Yeah, advertisements over here. Advertisements.
Okay,
Yes.
I think I grew up saying advertisements, and then I had to learn to say
Yeah, I
advertisement.
know. It's like tricky when you come from another country. Luckily, England. Well, yeah, in South Africa, we were brought up mostly with American TV because we hated the English because
Right,
of the
yeah.
Boer War, and then, of course, my mother was British, and I went to school and I learned all about the Boer War, and I learned that everybody hated the English. I went home and I said, I hate the English to my mother, and she said, well, you know where I'm from? I said, England. I said, so I'm English. So you hate me. So yeah, it was an interesting experience.
You hate half yourself too.
But anyways, I was saying about
that was me being programmed.
That's right.
Yes, the advertisements that advertisement companies have on their staff people who are experts at manipulating the subconscious. And if you think about it, you look at some of the commercials, they make no sense to the conscious mind. They seem stupid and repetitive and dumb, but the subconscious gets the message.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why a lot of times they make these commercials and it's like some silly repetitive thing. And then what they do is they play the whole commercial for a few times and then they cut it. Have you noticed that? Sometimes they cut from 30 seconds down to 5 seconds. And that's all they need because then you run the program.
Programming's already done, yeah.
Exactly. And so
but that doesn't work very well anymore because very few people watch TV, or at least I don't know too many people that watch TV anymore.
Yeah.
So we're not fed those specific programs like we used to, but
it's still happening a lot. There's still a lot of people.
There's still people who watch TV.
Kids are watching TV with a lot of ads still, and even some of the programs like I don't know, some of the popular ones like nowadays they have ads on Facebook or all of the social media have ads now. If you're watching a video, it'll pause in the middle of the video and an ad will pop up, so they're trying to.
YouTube has those, etc. Yeah.
But
I still find myself very, very rarely watching anything that has an advert, and it's interesting because it's such a significant decrease from our childhood where we were stuck in front of a TV. We only had Dallas and
yeah, my sympathy only having Dallas. I mean, that's
A-Team and and all those programs to watch, and then we were force fed the news, and we were force fed the adverts.
Yep.
And none of that really happens much anymore. I mean,
I disagree with you.
With my life.
Okay, right. Yes, because we don't, right? Because we don't watch TV. We have Netflix. And I'm so averse to commercials right now. If I'm watching a movie and a commercial comes up, I'm done.
Exactly.
I'm not. But I know that a lot of people who don't have that opportunity, they still have regular TV and they still are subject.
It's not that they don't have the opportunity. I don't think almost.
Well, maybe
anybody in America doesn't have the opportunity of Netflix.
That's true. You can always borrow somebody's password or something.
It's an interesting
thing
thing
for TV in any case.
That with the advertisers, I mean, I used to study advertising quite a bit, and I never did totally figure out why it was that advertisers are such poor learners. I say that because they invariably create commercials that when they program me with the commercial, it always produces the same result. And that result is an intense desire to go into the bathroom and throw up.
Well, see, they're not working for you, Walt. You're not the intended target.
Apparently not. And
it's obviously got a powerful effect on you. It obviously is working if you have that kind of effect.
That's true because for them, any effect.
Bad advertising is also good
still advertising. Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Believe me, I thought the purpose was to get me to buy their product, not to go throw up. But maybe I was wrong about that.
Hey,
maybe you're wrong.
Sometimes, like they say, no bad. There's no bad press. Like all press is good press.
Even bad press is good press. Yeah.
Exactly. There we go.
Yeah. Well, they got their wish. We now have him as a president. So anyway, we're going to. Well, that's exactly what he's all about. He's all about creating bad press when he's not getting enough attention.
That's true. He's
that's his modus operandi.
Good at that. He loves
not getting enough attention. Well, you got to start a controversy. Tweet something. Yeah. That's what he does. That's his.
And then more people focus on him, and then he gets voted in again.
I know. Unfortunately.
Well, we'll see about the last.
Understand the law of attraction. You understand why he's in power.
We are a couple minutes over. I want to make sure that I get our little promotional message in of our own, because we have to do our programming here.
Yes.
You have to press upon your minds you will become a subscriber. You will subscribe and you will like it. Are you having a headache?
Hang on, I'm just going to the bathroom to bring on.
I was just going to say, are you going to throw up? Okay, well, then we'll skip all that. We'll just make a request. If you're interested in subscribing and you're not subscribed, just go to the homepage of our website, elevatoday.net, and it shows you how to do it real simple.
Much nicer way of doing it.
Check us out on YouTube, too, because we're also there. That's where we live stream, too, as we're recording.
Yes, they have to come and see Louis' pompadour. Is that what it's called?
Pompadour?
Well, it's a pompadour because of his background. The beach background and the green screen effect tends to make the hair bounce around a little bit.
Yes, it's like going on.
It's cool, man.
He's channeling his inner Elvis Presley.
So with that wonderful thought in mind, I like that as a leading thought rather than some of the others we could have had, because we were talking about the subconscious mind, and this is about imprinting and programming. So let's leave it with a nice, pleasant thought. And that nice, pleasant thought is, I really appreciate you guys, and I love the discussion. This is really good. Very, very in-depth.
Likewise, we love you, Walt.
Oh, yes, and today's Walt's birthday. Happy birthday, Walt.
Oh, happy birthday, Walt.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. May the 4th be
Getting
with you.
younger every day. It's lovely.
Absolutely, yes. I'm down to minus 26. So
Sounds a bit cold.
where did the sun go? So thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Thank you, live
Thanks,
streamers.
listeners.
Thank you.
Thank you especially to our podcast listeners. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.